calling this meeting to order. It's Thursday, April 23rd, 2020. Roll call, please.
Chairman Iglesias?
Present.
Vice Chairwoman Ryan?
Present.
Councilman Castillo? Absent. Councilman Anthony?
Present.
And Councilman Taylor?
Here.
We have 4 present and 1 absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let the record reflect that City Solicitor Kenny Cheverini is also with us.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to take an item out of order. Motion to take item number 3 out of order.
So
Do I have a
moved.
vote?
Second.
By Vice Chair, second by Councilman Taylor. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion to continue per request, item number 3.
So moved.
Second.
By Chair, second by Councilman Taylor. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All unanimous. Next, let's go to, let's go directly to another item out of order, item number 4. Motion to take item number 4 out of order, please, by
Second.
Vice Chair makes a motion, second by Councilman Taylor. Discussion, all in favor? Aye. Unanimous vote. Madam Clerk, item number 4, please.
An ordinance requiring the Department of Public Works to refund taxpayers who were incorrectly charged late removal fees for garbage receptacles.
Thank you. I know Councilman Salvatore's on the line, and I would like to give him some deference to talk about this resolution, this ordinance. Councilman Salvatore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'll be brief in my comments. I know I've talked about this on the council floor and during an ordinance committee meeting. What this ordinance essentially does is require the city's administration, specifically the finance department and the director of public works, to put a plan in place to refund homeowners who have been overcharged for violations related to section 1263 of the Code of Ordinances. This has been going on since the fall, and after some due diligence and research was conducted by the internal auditor, we discovered that over $30,000 was overcharged to homeowners who didn't put their recycling bins and their trash bins back in their yards in a timely manner. The bottom line is these refunds have to be paid. We're not talking about a lot of money. This is more out of principle than anything. I didn't want to have to introduce an ordinance to get these refunds into the hands of their rightful owners, but I was left with no choice. I haven't received an update from the administration. I know the internal auditor has been or had made attempts to communicate with the administration to find out when these refunds would be made, and unfortunately they have not been made to date after the necessary research was conducted. So, Mr. Chairman, I recommend that we move this ordinance out of committee so that we can get, again, very small dollars into the hands of homeowners who might need it at this very critical time in our city.
Thank you, Councilman. Any comments or questions by committee members?
Mr. Chair,
Vice Chair Ryan?
just that I concur with our colleague, Councilman Salvatore. It doesn't make any sense why we're not making our taxpayers, there was clearly an overcharge. It happened. And I would like to ask the administration what they're doing now to deal with this.
Okay. Would the administration like to answer that, Mr. Mancini? I think I saw, was it Mrs. Silveria?
So, Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Finance Department, can I be heard? This is Mr. Mancini.
Okay, Mr. Mancini, can you explain what's going on here?
Yes, so Mr. Chairman, the Finance Department is in standby. If there is a valid reimbursement that's due, and not in spite of the ordinance that Councilman Salvatore did file, once there is a validation of the overpayments for whatever the reason was, no different than we had to refund speed zone tickets some 2 years ago. There is a process involving the controller's office. There would need to be a file that would have to be assembled that can be transferred to the controller's office for processing to issue these separate refunds. I would respectfully defer now to the Department of Public Works to give us an indication of where does that stand. I don't have that day-to-day knowledge of where that stands as far as the list of overpayments, but we would need name, address, a good address, and the appropriate dollar amount in order to process those checks.
Thank you, Mr. Heaney. Any other comments or questions by committee members?
Mr. Chairman,
Council members? Oh, yep, who would like to speak?
Mr. Chairman, it's Councilman Salvatore again.
Councilman Salvatore, of course. Yes, sir.
The internal auditor has this information. She has a list of homeowners and their addresses. So I don't think there's an issue in terms of where these folks are located. If the administration where they did receive returns, I think there are a couple of mechanisms in place to address that issue. One would be the state's unclaimed property program. We already have, as a city, a relationship with the General Treasurer's Office, so we could furnish those refunds because we're already considered a holder in the General Treasurer's unclaimed property division. Again, we have the list of homeowners who should be reimbursed, and I would like to see this happen sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Councilman Salvatore. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, it's Gina.
Internal Auditor Gina Costa.
I just want to let the committee know that the Department of Public Works was in agreement with this. I had asked them to do a thorough review of what I had given them. There were about 940 tickets to be reimbursed. They were supposed to compare it in their database. He did tell me that that was done and that the numbers looked accurate. But please keep in mind that was up and only until September 17th, 2019. Any tickets after that, they will have to do on their own to make sure that nobody was charged the excess in the penalty. So they already are in agreement.
Thank you, Internal Auditor. Let the record reflect that the treasurer's online too.
So noted.
Any other, also Councilman Castillo is with us also.
So noted.
Any other comments or questions on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Salvatore
Councilman
again.
Salvatore?
I would just have one
Salvatore?
housekeeping item,
Yes, sir.
that we amend section 1 of the ordinance by striking the word acting in line 1 of section 1.
Oh, yes, I see. Okay, so, do we entertain a motion to amend item number 4 to remove the word acting in section 1 on the first page?
So moved.
Is that motion? Motion by,
Second.
Vice Chair, second by Councilman Taylor. Discussion? All in favor? Motion
Aye.
carries unanimously. Madam Clerk, let the record reflect to remove the word acting on section 1 on page 1 of item number 4.
So noted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Does anybody else have any comments or questions about this matter? Then
Mr.
can I,
Chairman, This is Helen Anthony.
Councilwoman Anthony?
I would just echo the remarks made by Councilwoman Ryan. This is, I think, something that needs to be taken care of and taken care of as quickly as possible. It's obviously an unfortunate situation, and these people need to be made whole as soon as possible.
Okay, great. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chair?
With that,
Mr.
Vice Chair? Ryan?
Thank you, Councilwoman Anthony. I appreciate your support.
Donna,
I would just like
I
to,
wouldn't in the phone.
I would,
Or hit it.
Councilman Castillo, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Councilman Castillo? All right. Vice Chair, you have the mic.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to make a comment on, I do think it's really important that we get these funds back to our taxpayers to make them whole. And I would just offer a suggestion that it's tax time. I don't know if we can offer a credit, if that might be more efficient than cutting checks. But I would just suggest that the most efficient and the fastest way we can make our taxpayers whole, I would be in
Remove the word acting in section 3.
I would certainly leave that up to the administration to take the appropriate action. just a comment on,
Thank you.
that's all. No further comments, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it in. I need to also entertain another motion to amend this item. We missed on section 3, the word acting there also. So could I entertain a motion to remove the word acting in section 3 on item 4?
No moved.
Second.
Vice Chair, second by Councilman Taylor. Discussion? All in favor? Motion carries.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Madam Clerk, can I entertain a motion to pass item number 4? With a
Motion
recommendation of approval as amended
amended.
by
Second.
Vice Chair Ryan, second by Councilman Taylor. Discussion? All right. Well, I just want to say very quickly, I want to commend Councilman Salvatore. He's spot on this issue. What is concerning that it dates back to 2011. And, and when it comes to, the city is like right there when someone doesn't shovel the snow from their sidewalk or, all those other, garbage cans and et cetera. But when it comes to this, they're really lax.
Hello?
It is concerning that this has been going on for so long. So, I would hope that the full council would support it. I would also hope that the administration would embrace it and that Mr. Mancini and the Treasurer's Office, and the, Public Works and Finance Director, everybody work together to get the reimbursement. This is the wrong message we need to send to our constituents. We're always asking them to be good neighbors. We also need to be good neighbors to them. So I want to thank Councilman Salvatore. And of course, if there's no objection, I'd like to co-sponsor also.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, good job. And then I think it has a time frame in it. So any other comments or questions on this item? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion to pass as amended has approved unanimously. Madam Clerk, thank you. Let's go to the next item. Let's go to item number, let's go to a motion to take an item out of order. Item number 2. Motion to take item number 2 by Vice Chair, second by Councilman Taylor.
Second.
Right, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Madam Clerk, item number 2.
Resolution authorizing approval of the following contract award by the Board of Contract and Supply in accordance with Section 21-26A of the Code of Ordinances, LISA, Policy Council.
Okay. So what I gather, this list company, it's a request to hire this company who will then look at some city buildings and make an assessment of whether or not they can be converted into classroom space for pre-K. I don't know who from the administration wants to talk about, and correct me if I'm wrong if that's the representation. Who from the administration would like to discuss this matter for us?
Hi, yes, Chairman Iglesias. This is Diana Perdomo, the Mayor's Chief of Policy. I'm also accompanied by Jillian Fain, who is the Deputy Director of Youth and Education. We also have on the call today the Aaron Cox, who is from Local Initiative Support Corporation. Thank you for having us, Chairman, Council President, Majority Leader, and councilors. We're happy to answer any questions you have regarding this RFP and selection. By saying that the intent of the award is not specific to PPSD or city buildings. This is really about working with our local healthcare providers in the city to provide them the resources and technical assistance needed to improve their facilities, to increase their quality rating and be eligible for further state dollars, and also ensure that those centers are meeting the Bright Stars quality rating across the street, across the state, to ensure that the youth who are participating in those programs are able to achieve academically once they hit the school year.
All right, Ms. Perdomo, and correct me if I'm wrong, what was represented to me earlier was, I thought this was about the idea to try to create a pre-K program in the future. Is that what this is about, or it's not about that?
So it is related to the expansion of pre-K. The idea of this is that essentially in partnership with working with the state, understanding the gaps in the planning and doing so, We've been collaborating with the state on this all along the way. And the concept here is for us to expand pre-K opportunities. We need to be able to get the facilities in place to be at a higher standard so that those childcare provider seats can qualify for state assistance and state aid to be able to expand their reach.
So is this company going to be going into privately owned daycare centers and evaluating them? Is that what you're saying?
So Local Initiative Support Corporation has actually been a lead in the field in this for over 20 years. They have a child care facilities initiative that they have actually done support work for the state already. They have done an assessment of all of the properties in Providence as part of a statewide contract to look at childcare providers. So the intention of the grant is to continue to have LISC work directly with those Providence centers to identify the facility's needs and to also provide the support to enact those changes within those spaces.
Okay, so let me ask it again. Are these folks, this company going to be looking into private owned daycare centers or daycare facilities and evaluating them? Is that a yes or no?
They have already done so. They have already done so, yes.
So then what's LISC going to do exactly then? What's this company going to do then?
So LISC is a nonprofit, and they are a nationwide organization. This is the local Rhode Island entity. And I could actually ask Erin Cox, who's on the line, if she would like to answer any of these specific questions. However, what their intention of this award is to have LISC be granted these funds to administer a sub-granting process to nonprofits and to the child care providers within Providence that are some privately owned and others are nonprofits to be able to provide them an award directly to make the facility improvements needed to increase the quality rating among the Bright Star system.
So I just want to, because I said a lot there, but I guess I'm not understanding. So they have already looked at these facilities. Some are privately owned, some are publicly owned facilities, or wherever they are. Are they City of Providence publicly owned facilities?
No, none of them are owned by the City of Providence.
Okay. So who's the public in the publicly owned facilities? Is it the state?
So no, they're nonprofits. There's no
Okay.
publicly owned facility. So it's not public schools or anything of that sort.
Okay. So then LISC is, so what exactly is LISC is doing? Are they distributing the grant program? Now you mentioned they're distributing funds. So are they evaluating, distributing? What exactly do they do? I'm still don't have an understanding what they do. You gave me an awful lot, like worldwide program and all that stuff, but what exactly will they actually do? Are they evaluating?
Chairman.
And then if they are distributing grant money, what grant money, from what coffers, and where are we getting that from? Okay, so who would you like, Ms. Perdomo, to answer that question?
So I'm happy to defer either to Jillian Fain on my team or Erin Cox. She is available to answer these questions. I can tell you the scope.
The people from LISC here? Is it Ms. LISC? Okay.
Erin.
So are we paying them?
Yes.
Are we paying them from work that's already been done? Is that what this is for?
No, sir.
So this is Erin Cox. I can quickly speak to the Local Initiative Support Corporation LISC. We are an intermediary. We're a CDFI. What we do is we are able to access funds and leverage funds and pass them through. What we also provide is we operate the Rhode Island Child Care and Early Learning Facilities Fund, which I am the program officer of. That allows us to provide technical assistance, funding, and training to child care centers looking to improve their space. And child care centers in the state of Rhode Island are a mixed delivery system, which includes nonprofits, for-profits, community-based, and family child care. So Ms.
Cox, why is City of Providence paying you $750,000? I still don't understand why are we paying you money, and what are you doing for the city specifically?
And so that money will be passed through to child care centers to improve their facilities, to meet the Department of Human Services licensing regulations, as well as
So this money is actually gonna be put together like in a pot of money for granting. So your company, this list thing, is now gonna have that 750,000, and then you guys are gonna distribute the money to both, to different privately owned and non-profitly owned companies. Is that right?
Yes, the portion that's
So
dedicated for training and technical assistance, and then there is a majority is pass-through funds for childcare facilities to make improvements.
So who's been paying your company? Where do you get your money from? You getting money from the city now?
No. This
this
current
is just
RFP
a-
would actually be.
So this is not a, so then I'm kind of confused then. Mr. Mancini, Mr. Vera, I'm kind of confused. Ms. Cox just represented that the $750,000 is basically a pass-through grant program, that they're going to receive the money from the city and then distribute that grant money to different nonprofit and for-profit corporations in order to enhance their facilities for these types of educational services. So why is there a contract then before us? Why is it not just simply you guys giving them $750,000 to disperse? So what's the contract for? So that's contract law, and then I'm saying grant, and this is a grant. So which is it, folks?
So, Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding that this matter was brought before the Board of Contract and Supply. In fact, that's why it's before the Finance Committee this evening, because of the size of the contract. The contract is in excess
Mr. Mancini, slow down, Mr. Mancini. Ms. Cox just represented that this is money, we're gonna give them $750,000, and she's gonna distribute the money as a grant program. It's not a contract, we're just giving her $750,000. I don't think, we're creating a contract to give them $750,000 to distribute in a grant process? That doesn't make
Mr. Chairman,
sense.
So let me
Chairman, I would be
clarify,
happy-
Chairman, if you mind, let me clarify that this is a highly technical process in terms of following certain state regulations and requirements that are highly defined, requires a certain level of expertise to be able to administer those funds properly toward the intended goal. That was the intention of the RFP that was released by the city, to ensure that we were able to get the highest level of expertise available to us, to be able to properly administer these dollars, so that we would be sure that we could gain additional reporting through this process, be involved in the with the partnership with LISC, having them help us through the process of ensuring that we are using these dollars appropriately and toward an intended end goal of increasing space and quality within childcare providers, centers, or spaces within Providence.
No, I understand what you're trying to do as a mission statement. I'm just trying to understand how you're getting there. It seems to me that it's a separate conversation. Are you entering into basically, this $750,000, Ms. Cox said, they're not getting paid from the city. So it's basically.
Let us clarify.
Okay.
So LISC has not received an award from the city to date on this work to go forward. As part of the intended goal with this RFP, there will be a portion associated with the 750 that would be provided to LISC to be able to provide that technical assistance and administration process. So
Okay, so hold on one second.
it's
So now I'm
under
hearing,
10%.
Ms. Perdomo, I'm hearing now another story now. I'm not the one that came, Ms. Cox said that they weren't getting paid for this money. So here's the question. I just want to make sure.
I think there was a misunderstanding, sir. I
know.
think she was speaking to the
I recognize
past.
that. Ms. Perdomo, I recognize that. What I'm asking is this. So let's go back. Out of the $750,000, how much of that is going to go to LISC for them to perform those services? How much is to them first?
So within the RFP, there was a maximum of 10%.
Okay, and then the rest will go for them to distribute grant money. The rest is going to be grant money for them then to give it to for-profit and nonprofit companies to provide the service, right?
The childcare facilities in Providence, yes.
Right. That's what they are, right? They're for-profit and
Yeah.
privately owned. Okay, good, right? And so they're going to determine who gets the money. They're going to determine who gets the money and who gets this thing. Now the question is there additional funding from someplace else besides the 750 that LISC is getting to distribute it throughout the city of Providence?
Not from the city of Providence.
I recognize that. What I'm asking, let me try it again. Is there other funding that LISC is receiving, that they will be also distributing throughout the city of Providence in this program? Or is it just simply 750,000 minus 10% of that, and that's the program and that's that?
So as Aaron mentioned earlier, LISC does have a child care facilities fund that has been in place for a number of years. My assumption, I would rather Aaron speak to this. I know that there are other funders who support LISC in this work. So it would not be solely the city. The issue is that there is not enough resource to help our child care providers be able to make these changes, particularly because the of administering the program and the requirements made by the state that put pressures on the centers to be able to do this, or spaces to do this.
Okay, so now with that said, does that mean now when someone, one of these companies, nonprofit or for-profit or privately owned ones, I presume this is gonna say they need to do some modifications or some changes, right? Sounds like it's gonna be bricks and mortar, like changes to their facility in order to bring it up to date, right? Then list will identify, let's say they have to revamp the restrooms for the children, right? Then list will then give them a grant of money from this pot of money for them to rehab the restrooms for the children. Is that how the program works? Ms. Cox, is that how the program works? Or Ms. Cox, is that how it works? I mean, too rudimentary.
So no. That's a pretty good assumption of what it is. So our technical assistance, I'm a registered architect in the state of Rhode Island, and I specifically work with child care centers on improving space that not only bring quality, but also adhere to the regulations that are administered by the Department of Human Services. There has been a number of years where those things have fallen a little lax and a little behind. And so our goal is to really bolster the quality of programming. And so we offer that specialized technical assistance, and then we help those centers that procure the contractors or the designers or the people that they would need to make said improvements.
And Ms. Cox, is it true that you will be getting how much from this so you will get a portion of the 750,000, and if so, what's that portion of that? How much will you be getting?
So there's an administrative fee. I think Diana had mentioned that it was 10%, and there's a portion. We are a public-private entity as the facilities fund, so we receive public or private donations, and we also have contracts with other groups like the Department of Human Services or the Rhode Island Department of Education that help offset operational expenses. So this would be in addition to that as well.
So Ms. Cox, this money here, so I guess it's 10% minus 750,000 minus 10% of it. Will that now go into a bigger part of money that you have and control to help with these facilities to rehab themselves or to deal with whatever issues they have?
That is correct. It is parceled off for administration specifically to the program to offer services to the city of Providence, mixed delivery model of nonprofits, for-profits, and family child care.
So there's other monies going into this pot to help city of Providence. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and we have always, as part of the Rhode Island Child Care Facilities Fund, we've always been supported by at the state level to provide services to child care facilities within the city of Providence as one of our main groups that we work with. So we're really well entrenched already in the system.
May I ask you how much is in that fund now?
We have a contract. We have an annual contract that provides our operations. I would have to go back and look at the numbers, but it provides operations for our salaries for 3 employees.
No, but I mean, how much is in the fund to help to disperse? It's not like you get funds and you disperse it to these different private, nonprofit and for-profit companies, right, to rehab their places. How much is in that fund?
We currently have, it all depends on the grant system that we have. I would have to go back and look at what our private fund currently is. But as of right now, we operate a grant-based system. So this fund would be the fund dollars that are approved through this RFP for the city of Providence.
Okay, so then, so I thought this money here was going to be put into a bigger pot, and then that pot would then be dispersed to the city of Providence. You're saying this is the only money that will be dispersed in the city of Providence, is that correct?
For this particular use.
And can you just go a little more explanation, what exactly is the particular use? I gave an example of like rehabilitating the restrooms. What else is it for also salaries for those employees? Is it for healthcare benefits, pension benefits? Is it for what is it for?
This is for quality improvements to the physical environment. So it would be for any facilities improvement to meet the intent of regulations. For instance, if there is a classroom that is X amount of square feet and it could be made into 2 classrooms to provide 2 preschool spaces, it would be any of the construction or any of the design that would be relevant to the improvement of the physical facility. So it could include, adding new windows into the space so that it meets natural lighting. It could be adding accessibility, infant and toddler spaces who have to have direct access outside without the use of stairs. Specifically meant to not only improve the quality of space, but to meet the intent of childcare regulations, which are more stringent than general building code.
So it's not for the programming aspect. It's for the bricks and mortar aspect of the physical buildings or classrooms, right?
That is correct.
Is it also, can they use it for like buying IT, technical equipment like computers and smart boards and tables and chairs?
Generally, it is not used for fixtures, furnishings, and equipment. It could be something that is dealt with on a case-by-case basis. If it's something that is detrimental in any way or something that would be specifically used for quality improvement, that's when we would take a greater look at what that would be. Like if there's dangerous elements in the space that needed to be replaced.
And may I ask you, would this be the first year the city has done this program? Or is this new? Has this been several years going on?
This is
First year
that the city of Providence has contracted with LISC for this use.
This is the first year? All right. Okay. Mr. Mancini, do you want to say something?
No, I was to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, that to my knowledge, this is the first year that we've done this. And you had asked earlier my knowledge of the item that appears on the docket this evening. This was a matter that appeared before the Board of Contract and Supply. It was framed as a contract intended to be grant in the sense that the city would be retaining the services of LISC, who would then be engaged to other sub-grantees, as Ms. Cox has testified, that to empower them to prepare quality space for the provisions associated with pre-K.
Wait. It's basically I understand what it's for. It's basically it's like how the housing program. Someone's looking for money to put a new roof on their house or to fix their siding. Instead it's for a specialty program, which is pre-K, right? Is it just for pre-K, Ms. Cox?
This is intended to be used for the child care system, which is a birth through 5 system with an emphasis on pre-K. Okay,
so you're trying to do emphasis on pre-K, but then you're saying, you said first grade to 5th grade, did you say that?
I said birth through 5.
Okay, first of all. And so how now, in Mr. Mancini, I think part of the problem is because how this thing was created, but let's take a step back. The question I have further is, how do we know, how they're getting it, who's getting it, and why they're getting it? Because it sounds like it's almost like a brick and mortar criteria. Here's the standard that the state wants this pre-K facility to look like. And the question is, if that person doesn't have one. So can someone tap into this to create a brand new business, Ms. Cox?
Generally, no. What we would do is we would have a competitive application process that would be vetted by a governance committee from members of the city of Providence, as well as the state agencies and advocacy agencies who understand that we would take a look at anybody who has applied, who provides certain services, who has a record of providing childcare, who needs said improvements and is on a pathway to quality improvement. So we would have a regimented application process.
So Ms. Cox, your company, I guess I was on the misinformation. Your company's not going to go into the this company's building and start assessing it. They would actually send an application in and say, look, I'm using this as an example, we need to rehabilitate our restrooms. This is the location, this is what it is. And then you folks, does your company then verify? Is that what happens? Or who will verify? Do they go into the field and verify that need? How does that work?
It would be a combination of both. I think one of the interesting things about the Child Care Facilities Fund that we operate is that on top of providing funding, we also provide technical assistance, which basically means, we have an expertise in childcare facilities and would go out and vet those spaces and work with a childcare provider and talk to them about what these design decisions would mean from a quality perspective, from a cost perspective, and from a childcare health and safety perspective.
Okay. And now I'm going to go back to Mr. Mancini and Mr. Rivera. Now, I noticed that you got the two account codes, public property and non-departmental, where you're going to get this money from. In the public property one, do you have enough funding of that? Is it $250,000 left in the public property fund at this time?
There is, Mr. Chairman, and when this process began, it had been intended to be paid through a combination of those accounts that appear on the award letter. And at this time, we're still of the opinion that the funds are available.
Is that, Ms. Internal Audit, Mr. Lombardi, Mr. Treasurer Internal Audit, is that correct? Mr. Internal Audit or Treasurer?
This is Gina. I have
Internal Audit?
$250,000 budgeted for that line item, the 1801. 78 of it has been used. The intent was that for school rehab projects. So if we're not using it for school rehab projects, we still only have 180 left.
Okay. So in your review, Ms. Internal Audit, the funding isn't fully there for this award. Is this correct?
Correct.
All right. So, Mr. Mancini, Mr. Rivera,
Mr. Chairman, I believe.
if you don't have the full award, where do you plan on obtaining that additional funding to pay for this? Knowing with the financial crisis the city is in and going to be in the next couple of years?
Yes. So, Mr. Chairman, I believe the balance would have come from the mayor's contingency line in the city budget, general fund.
Does the mayor have enough money in his contingency account?
I believe at the last time we confirmed that, it did.
Internal Order?
My question is, there was a summer learning transfer out of that fund, and it was only half of the total fund. I thought all of that was for summer learning. Is that incorrect?
I'm going to defer to Ms. Perdomo. I don't have the details on the summer learning activity as far as its completion. Diana?
Ms. Perdomo, can you answer that question to Internal Order?
I can answer.
Okay, go ahead.
You have the mic. Internal Order, would you like to rephrase your question? Restate your question for Ms. Perdomo, please?
There is $580,000 left in the non-general fund, the contingency line item, but it did say summer learning transfer 1. So is there additional summer learning transfer being done out of that fund?
No, there is not. This is Sarah. There was 500 budgeted in that line item for this purpose, and 580 was for the summer learning.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that's fine.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask one more question?
Internal Order, yes.
What is the timeline of these projects to be completed? Are we writing one check to LISC and then we're all done, or is there a timeline?
So, Madam Waters, Defense.
Ms. Cox, because we don't we're at a disadvantage because we actually don't have the proposed contract in front of us, and that always gives me great concern. But Mr. Mancini, can you answer the Internal Order this question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding that it would be an immediate transfer upon completion and approval of the City Council and moving off the Board of Contract docket, as these are the funds that will be under the control of LISC, with due diligence reporting to the City of Providence and to the Governance Committee. Ms. Cox testified to that, Ms. Perdomo testified to that, and I have been briefed in that regard, and I'm giving that testimony this evening that these are funds that will be expended nearly immediately. And I'm not sure if the auditor, with due respect, was concerned about would it be spent over a period of time and would it be completed on our part by fiscal year end, and will we be able to fund it appropriately? In answer to all those questions, the answer is it will be immediate transfer. It will be completed on our part before year end, and it is reflected in our projected operating statement and cash flow.
Okay. The Internal Order, you have another question?
Yes, I do.
Lombardi. General order?
Is, public property did not sign off on this. You're using public property budget to fund this. Are they aware of this? And in the future, can you please have, when one department is using another department's budget, you need to have dual signatures so that we can know transparently that they are agreeing to this.
Point well noted, Mr. Chairman, and we'll be sure to have that rectified nearly immediately.
Mr. Lombardi, Treasurer, do you have a question or comment?
I do. I just have a few questions
Sure.
for LISC. So it's going to be 750,000 less 10%, 75,000, which is about $675,000 that will be available for this grant. How much more money are they going to raise? I think you went down this path, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if I got an answer. How much more money are they going to raise to pay these deficiencies?
That question is either Ms. Cox or Ms. Perdomo, or both.
So I would, Aaron, could you answer
Ms.
this?
Perdomo?
Yeah, so I think I would defer to Aaron on this question, as LISC has a very good sense in terms of what their fundraising would be looking like and also the needs for these programs. Provide your insight.
I would seek clarification on what efficiencies you're referring to.
Well, you've done a report on the different childcare centers about deficiencies that are needed to be fixed, and you're going to provide, well, the city through you is going to provide grants to fix it. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So how much money is LISC going to raise outside of the $675,000?
The intent of this use of funds is straight pass through for a portion minus the administration fee that is from the Providence to pass through. If we're able to raise additional funds or leverage additional funds from statewide sources, we will apply those as well. But at this point, we'd be using solely what's in this RFP.
Okay, so as part of this grant program, why are we using LISC? We already have a deficiency program. Why isn't this going through planning and development or one of our organizations, OEO? I mean, we pay them a lot of money to do this, and then LISC already has the deficiency issue, and then we're going to pay them $75,000 to distribute funds that we could do internally.
Mr. Mancini, Ms. Perdomo, valid question. Can you please answer it? And I also ask you to keep in perspective the financial issues facing the city of Providence.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, I would defer
Mancini?
to Ms. Perdomo, but I would offer my opinion following her testimony.
So
Ms.
the
Perdomo?
purpose, yes, the purpose of engaging LISC, again, is specific to the regulations and requirements that are imposed by the state that are incredibly technical, and their expertise to be able to deliver this appropriately and efficiently for us. It is beyond the current city's expertise to be able to do this in a way that is fully meaningful, that's going to be able to be as helpful as possible to these childcare providers and for the youth and children in Providence to be able to have access to high quality educational environments prior to starting kindergarten. So our intention is, even in having conversations with planning and public property and other divisions, as we were scoping out what the best opportunity was for us to be able to complement and support the state's efforts, that we realized that specific engaging an agency that had this expertise to help us with childcare facilities would be the best route to take.
And using a consultant for a lot less would make sense. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No. Mr. Lombardi's question, Ms. Perdomo, you can restate it, please, sir. Mr. Lombardi, restate your question.
So instead of paying $75,000, hiring a consultant and doing it internally wouldn't make more sense?
I do not think so. I do not think that would make more sense for us. I will say that this model, and not necessarily this model in terms of engagement, is something that we spoke with at the state level as well. This is essentially a similar model that they had taken in being able to do the initial assessment of properties. And so it would be, I think, in order to engage someone of the level of expertise we need, that consultant would actually be more costly than for us to be able to piggyback on the efforts that LISC has already done locally to be able to do this and support us in being able to send out those dollars to the appropriate entities that they have already engaged with for years.
Excuse
One
me,
more
Mr.
question.
Perdomo. 1 second, Mr. Lombardi. Mr. Perdomo, you just mentioned 2 times, you said that there's already been a report done identifying deficiencies. There's already been a report done to look at all, you just mentioned actually facilities. So where is that report? And what does it show for deficiencies and what facilities? And there must be a price point to those already. So how much is that tally up? Because I think that's, if Mr. Treasurer, I think that's where you're going. If you already have a deficiency report that says you need $4 million and you only come up with $675,000, is there still a need? Question is, it sounds like all the report's been done. So now this is a matter of just dispersing a grant to those facilities you already identified. Because I have a question, Ms. Cox, maybe you can answer. Ms. Perdomo mentioned how technical this is and extremely technical. Why is it so technical to identify what the physical building or structure or restroom should be for pre-K 1, 2, 3? Why is that so out of the ordinary than what the city already does now? By the way, as you know, we're in a monumental rehabbing of all our buildings in our schools right now. Are we saying that there's something different that, has the city been doing something wrong all these years and they don't know how to do it? Because the city's been doing it for their own school buildings. Is that there's something that we're missing for, you mentioned K, all the way to 5th grade. Can you please explain to us more specifically what makes it so highly technical and specific that the identification of a deficiency needs in a building, in a structure, is so beyond the reach of the city of Providence's abilities? Could you please weigh in on that, please? Ms. Perdomo, who wants to do that?
Yeah, so child care facilities and the age groups that we're talking about are the birth through 5 system. So you're talking ages 0 infants to pre-kindergartners. So you're looking at ages 5.
So yeah, I thought you were saying you're doing pre-K to 5. So this is for nursery school. This is schools.
Birth. Yeah, this is birth through 5. So
okay.
Birth through 5 is what we're looking at. So we're looking at different. Yeah. So that age group is very different, and there are different licensing regulations that are required to make sure that the health and safety of these very young, very vulnerable, very immobile children are taken care of. And so there are a different level of building requirements related to accessibility, access to natural light, acoustics, all of those things that improve the vulnerability of a very young child. So these are all, we know in Providence, an aging building stock, that there are a lot of other hazardous issues that tend to come up in spaces as well.
So Ms. Cox, let me ask a question. That's a very valid point. I agree with the vulnerability aspect. Myself, a single parent raising 2 sons on my own, I recognize that in my journey. My question to you is, does that mean now the buildings that you identified that are deficient, their licenses been pulled and they're closed now because they've been the buildings are in deficiency level? Are we trying to reopen these businesses because their license has been pulled because their buildings are deficient?
It's a combination of many things. There are licenses that are considered non-compliant, that are on hold, or that have a waiver put on them. So we are trying to bring all these groups up to licensing compliance. In addition, we're trying to not only take centers that are trying to meet licensing compliance, but we're also trying to improve centers on a high quality system. And when I say high quality, what I mean is that we not only want to have spaces that meet regulations and are compliant, but are actually beneficial to children, that go beyond the regulations. Things like improving the acoustics in space, so that when a child is in space, they're not being distracted by large HVAC systems that are rattling, that we're making additional improvements as well.
Thank you. So in that laundry list, it seemed like who already did the identification of the facilities and the ones that are deficient? Did Ms. Cox, did you do that, or did someone other entity do it, Ms. Perdomo? Can you tell us who did that and where that report is?
Yeah, LISC received a grant from the Department of Human Services to conduct statewide facilities assessment. And we did a statewide assessment looking at child care facilities specifically, built upon our original 2014 assessment, and then updated that with a 2019 assessment where we polled and surveyed all of our childcare in the state to get common like issues for deficiencies in space. It's now taking to the next level where people can apply and we can physically go into the space, provide recommendations, and then give them the funding to make those improvements.
So is that deficiency report on the web? Is it readily available? Identifies location?
It is on the
building,
Child Care Facilities Fund website. And I'm very happy to send you a copy of it as well.
That'd be great. I think council members would like to know, it'd be beneficial to them to know which facilities are in the neighborhood. I think, and also so the city. Do you know how many are in the city themselves? How many are in the city, I should say? A general number?
I will have to go back and look specifically at the city of Providence. I know that in the state we have 500 childcare facilities and we have a multitude of family childcare providers. So I would imagine that we are in the range of 100 plus providers in the city of Providence at a childcare center level.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Chairman, just to follow up.
Mr. Lombardi?
I just want to ask, I mean, obviously, we're going to be needing to borrow money at some point to balance the budget or to balance at least the cash flow. And I just want to make sure that the $750,000 going towards this program is something that the council wants to do. Is there any way that we could put it through the block grant? I mean, I question the appropriateness of using city funds for private entities. I know if the block, I think the block grant would be a better place to be spending this money. That's probably what it should be used for, the block grant. But city funds, where we're looking possibly to borrow in the next year, I just think that that's questionable.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardi. Mr. Mancini, will there be an auditing of the books and how the money is spent, who gets it, and then if it's even being used for the appropriate purpose, Mr. Mancini?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Perdomo and I have spoken about that leading up to this discussion this evening. There will be due diligence requirements on the part of LISC, as they will have due diligence requirements on the part of the providers whom they are able to assist with the program. And I'm sure it will have both intermittent as well as final report completion to the city of Providence.
Mr. Mancini, is that built into the contract since we don't have it for us?
And
Does the contract speak to the fact that the city will have the ability to audit and to verify what's happening with that funding? Is it actually in the proposed contract itself, or is this simply a sense of hopefully this will happen and hopefully it happens? So
I don't have that contract in front of me, but Ms. Perdomo, can you answer that for me, please?
We are building that in the contract. Yes.
So you're going to amend the contract so we have that type of auditing provision, Ms. Perdomo?
Yes.
Okay, so just for the record, so we'll be relying on the representation of you and Mr. Mancini that the contract will be amended accordingly in order to protect the citizens' money. I have another question. You mentioned about a committee or a board, Ms. Cox, that does the review of the applications. Is that correct? Mr. Clerk, you need to unmute her, I believe. Ms. Cox, Erin Cox on the bottom.
I'm sorry, could you please repeat the question?
Yes, can you tell us a little more about, you said there's a board or a commission that meets, I guess, that then reviews the application, and then I guess that board determines if the application has merit to give money to, is that correct?
So ideally, what we would like to do as a due diligence check is, as LISC, we would like to partner with the city of Providence and our other state agencies and our other childcare advocates to bring together a small group to reflect on any application that we receive to provide funding for said improvements, so that everybody's on the same page and we all come to an agreement that we're meeting the intent of helping the childcare facilities in a mixed delivery system.
Okay. So, Ms. Perdomo, is that actually in the contract itself, that there will be actually a committee comprised of whatever membership that will actually be the ones that will vet the applications and award them, Ms. Perdomo? Is that in the contract?
I do not have the specifics, but yes, that would be the intention of the contract.
So I would ask that if it's not in the contract, I think you need to amend it to add those two provisions in it. So this way people feel that it's being done in a fair, open manner. And if anybody who does submit an application, they feel they're getting a fair opportunity, maybe I presume they'll be able to go to this committee or this group, and the group, they'll be able to advocate why they need the money and not need the money. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Right? So Mr. Mancini, Ms. Perdomo, beneficiaries of the people of Providence, that two things at least get amended. I asked Mr. Cheverini, are you on the line, sir? Solicitor?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Solicitor,
Yes,
can you
I
make
am.
sure this contract gets amended, at least for those two provisions and any other provisions to protect the people of Providence? One dealing with the audit provision, and the second one dealing with some type of committee comprised of specific named, group of board members that will be the ones who will vet and award this grant money. Can you make sure that gets added to this contract, sir?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, sir. And Mr. Cheverini, if it's not added to the contract, please inform to Ms. Costa and Mr. Lombardi, if you are told not to add it, why, and if it doesn't get added, then please let us know so it does not get awarded, so the people of Providence are protected. So we're going to be counting on you to be the gatekeeper and the shepherd of this proposal. Can you do that, sir?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor. Are there any comments or questions concerning this matter by committee members?
Mr. Chair?
Vice Chair Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Following up on your question regarding contract, what assurances do we have facilities will be actually serving Providence children?
I'm going to defer that question to Ms. Perdomo or Ms. Cox. Can you please, would you like to answer the Vice Chair's question?
So generally, I would say that the intention of these funds, and as we are awarding them, is specific to Providence Child Care Facilities providers that are serving children in Providence.
It's to
Vice
Providence
Chair?
facilities, but is there any controls that you have in place that provides assurance to us that the service is to Providence students?
Yeah, so I defer to Erin, her process on this. The likelihood of a child care facility that would be taking advantage of this fund is that the majority of those youth are Providence based.
Okay, so would that also be a component of the contract?
We could certainly tie into the application because it is a parent choice system. We can certainly add into our application that people give us the demographics of the location of the children in which they serve so that we would know what percentage of Providence children are being served within a specific facility. On the plus side, you're supporting a business that is operating and licensed through the city of Providence as well.
Well, I get that. I'm just wondering who they're serving. And then my other question, Mr. Chair, if I may continue, is I guess the big question for me is why are we spending money on learning spaces when the future of the educational settings are such an unknown right now? I guess timing for me is troubling, particularly when we are fully aware of the financial challenges of the city of Providence. This is a big step for us. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Mr. Mancini, Ms. Perdomo, would you like to weigh in that question?
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to defer to Ms. Perdomo, but in my briefing, to the leader's point, this is as much about providing stability for parents to not only have their children placed in early learning, but also the opportunity for all-day provision where they could either be reemployed, fully employed, better employed, and has that provision as well. But Ms. Perdomo, perhaps you could provide the more specific answer to that.
Yeah, so I would echo what Mr. Mancini has just said. I believe that even if in this moment things are a bit stable, this is a constant challenge for these child care providers. And we will resume to an opportunity where those providers will be available for workers, for people in Providence to have their children in these safe spaces. We do know that there may be a temporary period in which these providers will have to be provided additional guidance from the state on how to be safe at these times. But in order to improve those facilities, to be able to make these high quality environments, this would be a good decision to make at this moment, so that we don't hinder the development of these youth who are in these spaces that are not considered of highest quality at this point.
If I may also ask,
Vice Chair?
thank you.
Chair?
Erin Cox, if she could respond to this. Do you have other relationships? Does LISC have other relationships like this with other municipalities?
We are generally operating as a statewide entity. Most recently, we work with the Department of Human Services and get funding from the Department of Human Services to operate. We also were administering funds through Race to the Top. So we had done pass-through grant funds to Race to the Top to different municipalities for childcare centers as well. This would be, as far as I know, our first contract with a specific city in the state of Rhode Island.
Do you have other contracts with other municipalities outside of the state of Rhode Island?
The Child Care Facilities Fund operates solely in Rhode Island. LISC is a national CDFI corporation who operates 31 offices throughout the country, who I'm sure have other contracts with other municipalities at this capacity.
Okay, I guess the reason I'm asking that type of question is because my familiarity with LISC is relative to LISC being a resource for capital for really important projects. I do know that you're the country's largest social enterprise supporting projects and programs to revitalize communities. I guess I'm used to you bringing the money to the table to make something happen or to contribute to the community's well-being. I just find this odd that you're coming to us to fund a project. Were you asked to fund this project and you couldn't find a funding resource? That's why you came to the city?
We responded to an RFP soliciting this project.
Okay.
So this was our opportunity to leverage funds to bring into this, to utilize in the city of Providence from the city of Providence.
So the city of Providence sought you out through an RFP? Is that what you're saying?
That is correct.
Ms. Cox, did anybody from the city of Providence reach out to you guys prior to the RFP being issued?
We received the RFP at the City of Providence website and we applied.
So are you saying that no one from the city of Providence ever reached out to you folks prior to the RFP being issued?
The only thing we did was participate in conversations with the City of Providence relative to improving schools and a potential expansion for pre-K as a partner, not as somebody seeking funding.
So was this program or this type of program ever mentioned during those conversations?
Not that I recall.
Okay. All right. And who did you interact with the city of Providence at that time?
So I can take this. It would have been with, I think I had maybe one conversation with Aaron a while ago. We were talking about opportunities to work on childcare overall. And then my colleague, Jillian Fain, who's our Deputy Director of Youth and Education, had also had some interactions regarding the statewide planning process.
So Ms. Perdomo, who actually came up with this idea to create this grant program then? I know that's right.
Yeah.
When, did the identification of deficiency buildings, is that something that happens annually, Ms. Cox? Is that what you said? It's an annual report conducted?
We did our first assessment in 2014 as part of Race to the Top to identify spatial needs in physical environments for childcare. And then we were asked as part of the strategic plan for childcare through the Department of Human Services and through the state to update that facilities assessment this year or in 2019. So just recently it was released in November. And so this is a model, this particular project that we're discussing is modeled based on previous projects in previous years in the state of Rhode Island.
And I just want to make sure that is any of the money going to go to actually for private businesses?
The child care system in the state of Rhode Island is mixed delivery. There are nonprofits, for-profits, and family child.
Okay. Ms. Perdomo, you was going to say, where did this idea came from? Who had the Eureka idea?
Wasn't a Eureka idea. My team had diligently been researching ways that we could provide additional support to the child care system to improve quality education or access to quality programming before children are entering into our public school system or our school system. And so we had actually had a number of conversations with various entities to understand how best we can be helpful in this scenario. And so we engaged with the state to understand their planning process. We had engaged with providers locally to understand their needs. And we had done some research on what work had been done locally, but also what had been nationally done in the space of being able to improve quality rating for child care providers.
And you came up with providing a grant program for their physical structure. Okay. That seems to be pretty, that's pretty standard fare, which is like what we're doing for the housing. So that's good. All right. Any other comments or questions on this matter? All right. Do we have a motion? Do we have a motion to recommend and move forward? By whom?
I'll make the motion to
By
recommend.
Councilman Anthony.
approval. Yes.
Do I have a second by Councilman Castillo? Discussion? I just want to remind the city solicitor, make sure those amendments get added to the contract, Mr. Solicitor. I don't know. Kenny Cheverini, can you hear us?
Doesn't appear he's on the call.
Was. Ken Cheverini, are you on the phone, solicitor?
I'm here, sir. I was muted.
Okay. So just want to make sure that the motion is second. We're just going to be counting you to make sure the amendments get added to the contract, sir?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. All right. With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Madam Clerk, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cox. Good luck on your program. Ms. Perdomo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Ms. Fain, good luck. Thank you all for participating. Next, the item number 1, Madam Clerk. Mr. Clerk.
Contract and supply in accordance with section 21-26A of the Code of Ordinances. WIOA Comprehensive Youth Program Workforce Solutions.
All right, so I guess with this, who would like to talk about this one? Anybody from administration? Okay, so I would ask, I guess we need to get information on this, so I'd ask internal audit if you could just dig down on this one, knowing what we know about what's going to happen this summer, actually what's going to happen at the end of the school year and this summer. We don't even know, I mean, as you know, the mayor has closed the parks. We don't, right now, who knows how long he's going to keep everything closed down, or the rec centers. So the idea that we would actually run a youth program when things are closed and there's no way to have our children show up anyplace. So I would think that I would look for more information internally. Could you drill down and get some more information on this?
Mr. Chairman, I believe Stephen Boyle is on the call.
I don't know. Okay. Who's Mr. Boyle?
Stephen is on the call. I'm sorry, I don't know why he can't hear. Stephen Boyle, are you there?
Yes, I am.
So, Mr. Boyle, why don't you identify yourself and tell us what you do for the city, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'm the new Executive Director for Workforce Solutions. Started on December 9th. I was on the board. I was the president of the Cranston Chamber of Commerce for approximately 7 to 8 years, and I served on the board, on the Workforce Solutions board. So I recently took over as the Executive Director at the Providence Cranston Workforce Solutions, and I'm located down at the One Stop.
Oh, well, first of all, congratulations, and thank you for participating this evening. We appreciate that. Hopefully, you and your family will be safe and sound.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it, and it's yours.
So you gave us some more, by you just stating that, you actually enlightened me a little bit more about what this is. So can you just give us some more detail of what the 1.3 is for? And I see the Housing Authority, I see that. Can you just talk about what this program is for, sir?
Yeah, basically, this is very similar to the programs that have been running through Workforce Solutions for many years. The money is, there's no city money. It comes from the federal government. It's a WIOA grant. It goes to, so we fill out an RFP. It gets designated to the state, and then the state gives us our allocation. We've put into for 1.3, and I think with the economy the way it is, I think it's going to be very crucial that we actually do help the youth going forward. Hopefully by this time that we'll be able to see some jobs. Some of the agencies right now that we're working with are still training youth and putting them into employment. Not obviously difficult, but it's still doing it. But in this situation where we'd be serving the low income and youth who have barriers, such as, single parents, English learning, court involved type situations. But so basically it's to provide a positive youth development for job readiness. 75% of the local funds have to be spent on out of school youth, and 20% of the local funds have to at least be used for paid work experience for the youth. But basically what happens is, and I was reviewing this with CCAP today, so when this money comes in, what they're doing is there's 14 elements that have to be addressed. So basically academic remediation, they work with them to get GEDs, they work on their high school diplomas, mentoring, career paths, work readiness training, soft skills that they may not have. And there's a 1-year follow-up service with them as well, and a financial literacy education component. So it's a fairly comprehensive situation when the people are in, and we've had great success doing it. So it's really a continuation on of the same type of grants that we've had before. Then we also, from our side, we have to hit certain percentages of how many enter employment, how many are retained, their medium earnings. We have a credential rate. Going for post-secondary credentials, and then we measurable skill gains. So we are, even ourselves, we get evaluation on this for the thing. So basically what happened, there were 6 proposals that came in. There was an independent committee of people from Providence and the administration, but also from nonprofits, PASA, Rhode Island Marine Trades, Rhode Island Community for Justice, to name a few, that they came through and they did the assessment based on a rating situation, and then the top 3 were designated for award as far as that goes. So, and what will happen is that they put in dollar amounts that they'd like to have. That will still be negotiated on, but our cap will be 1.3. And again, I can say that it's all federal money, and I sort of not to disagree with you, but I think it's going to be more important and it's going to be harder to get these people in, but we still need to get them the skills to compete. My being in the chamber, we've already started to reach out to employers who would be taking these people in, because that's going to be the harder thing.
Mr. Boyle, you're correct. I thought it was a different program, so I stand corrected on this one.
No problem.
I didn't realize it was with the workforce. Once you explained, that's why I was asking for more information. So with you explaining it, explain exactly what it is, because this is folks also who are not in school also, you said, right? Young people out of school who didn't finish their school, get GED. This is a different program. I was concerned about that we'd be running a summer program for children in the parks when the parks are closed.
Oh, no.
Get my point? So I thought it was a different program, which seemed to be counterintuitive, but your program is, I get your program, though. I understand the one. I'm very familiar with it. And it's an excellent program that's actually I know a lot about it.
Okay.
I know some folks that actually ran it way back when and how they turned the place around way before your time. But, no, so you explained it very well to me, and I appreciate it. So it looks like the ones you're looking to, is that the top 3 bidders or 3 awards potentially will go to Housing Authority of Providence. Am I reading that right?
Yep.
Comprehensive Action Plan?
Yep.
And the Forster Forward. And I guess then what you'll do is you'll negotiate with them, but the bottom line is you will probably disperse what you think can to each 3, what works, what doesn't work, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I think, in Forster Forward and Providence, they're more on pilot programs, so they're going to need a little more hand-holding. So, and like I said, we haven't received the total notification from WIOA 2020 funds, but it looks like we'll be receiving 1.3, and then we'll negotiate with each partner at that point down to how many youth they can actually service. CCAP's been phenomenal. They've been doing it for years. They've been our main provider. So as far as that goes, it'll be negotiated down, but it won't exceed the 1.3.
Thank you.
And also, you
explained it really well. Does any comments or question by committee members?
No, Mr. Chair.
Council members? Okay. So I think you explained it very well, Mr. Boyle. Clearly, this is an excellent program. Workforce Solutions has, working well with the city of Cranston. I know that's how it all began. Began way back when, and it's a program that is important to a lot of folks that haven't finished school, or young adults, I should say. So I agree with you. So do I entertain a motion to recommend approval?
So moved.
By Vice Chair, second by
Second.
Councilman Field and Councilwoman Anthony. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. By the way, I'm using my hand sanitizer as the gavel, just so you know. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Boyle, thank you, by the way. Mr. Boyle, thank you very much, by the way. Keep up the good work. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for participating. Madam Clerk, is there any more business before this honorable committee? Is there more? No. That's it. Then do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
By Vice Chair, second by Councilwoman Castillo. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Good luck, everybody, and be well and be safe. Thank you all.